Good morning, welcome back to Football League World TV. It's time for a Blackburn Rovers fan debate, and here we're looking at the 5 best strikers Blackburn have ever had. Joining me is Dirk from Roverseas. Dirk, how are you getting on? I trust it's quite early in the morning for you where you are.
It is. Thanks again for having me on. Looking forward to this. It was quite difficult narrowed it down to just 5, as we've had some colourful characters, colourful strikers, over the past few, 10, 20, 30 years anyway in my era. But looking forward to talking about it. So excited.
All right, let's get straight into it. Yeah, some great names, as Dirk mentions. Blackburn fans, wherever you're watching, do get in touch. Let us know who'd make your list. There's 5 strikers we want to get through. Let's get straight into the first one. Dirk, who's your first pick?
My first pick was a one-season wonder for Blackburn Rovers, and it's Craig Bellamy. Craig Bellamy, came to us. He actually had a whole list of decent clubs around the Premier League, and he seemed to be successful wherever he went. And no more so when he was at Blackburn Rovers. I think he averaged around about 1 goal every 2 games. It was a time, I think it was around about 2007, 2008, around about that era. Good proven striker from around the Premier League at that time. Quite surprised when we picked him up I think Mark Hughes bought him. He scored some important goals that kept us moving in the right direction. And unfortunately, for whatever reason, he decided it was just 1 season with Blackburn Rovers, kind of like Yakubu when we had. He was another name that I thought about. I didn't put him on the list, I don't think. That he also scored some important goals as well. Unfortunately, I think we actually got relegated with the season that Yakubu was with us. So he had some positive memories alongside, the tainted year or the tainted era of Steve Keane. So I think Craig Bellamy just edged him out. But I think he went onwards to Liverpool, I think, afterwards from Blackburn Rovers and did score quite a few important goals for them as well. But Craig Bellamy gets in my list as number 5, and I'm trying to keep it within my era of the last 30 or so years. For me, Craig Bellamy gets number 5.
Okay, I mean, you look at his league record, 13 goals in 27 games. I mean, that's some going, isn't it? Really, in that 1 season. Do you think, although he was only Blackburn for a short amount of time, you perhaps got to see the best of him? In terms of his whole career. Obviously, he had good spells at likes of Liverpool.
Yes,
West Ham as well.
It seems to be. It seems like looking back at his numbers, he had more longevity, I guess, at Newcastle. But when he was with us, he was on fire. I think I replay a couple of goals in my mind. I think one was against Portsmouth. It was an absolute beautiful goal. If anyone's out there, Google that one, because it's a special goal, a nice individual effort as well. So I enjoyed time with him, and I was excited when we signed him because he was such a talent at that age. And because previously he wasn't swapping clubs left, right, and centre. I think that was a catalyst really when he moved from Newcastle to Blackburn Rovers. That was the point where he started swapping the clubs around. He went to Liverpool, then he went to West Ham, then Manchester City, and then back to Liverpool and all that kind of stuff. So we were the starting point where he started to mix it up a bit with his career and don't really put down any roots. It was a good season. I think it was Mark Hughes era. That was a good era when we were picking up a lot of talent for a good price, and then we were selling on for a good bit of money. But unfortunately, it was just the one year with Craig Bellamy.
And just finally on Bellamy, Dirk, before we move away into the rest of the list, how important do you think Mark Hughes was in terms of his career, and obviously helping him at Blackburn first of all, but then obviously they linked up again at Manchester City where he had a fairly decent time of it as well.
Well, there's a few of those. There's a few of those people that did that move from Rovers, and not necessarily direct to Manchester City but that was the start. It's kind of like Newcastle today, right here, right now. Of course, they're starting to have all the money. They'll pick off the decent cherries off the tree. They're not the elite players, but the players are in that sort of next tier down. Your Dominic Calvert-Lewins perhaps of today's world, trying to grab those good but not great players. But he did it. Bellamy eventually did it. I guess Hughes transitioned into Manchester City manager. We lost Roque Santa Cruz, another name. Spoiler alert, that did that transition as well. It was a key part. And again, at that time in that era, around about the mid noughts, Mark Hughes was was a coveted manager, and he did wonders for a limited budget for Blackburn Rovers at that time. We were trying to think who was prior Hughes. It was probably, I don't even know if it went to Roy Hodgson, and trying to think, maybe it was actually Graham Souness, I think. So we transitioned out of the Souness, the era, which was also quite an iconic era for Blackburn Rovers fans. After the Dalglish thing, is probably one of our next best ones. We won a bit of silverware there, but no, Hughes is at that point anyway, was an icon still. It was referred to as a elite player in his day, and he transferred into a really good manager at that point. I don't know about these days. I think his stock has fallen a little bit, Mark Hughes, but I think there's a portion of Rovers fans that wouldn't mind seeing him back. But I'm on the fence about that one.
Okay, well, that's Craig Bellamy that comes in at number 5. Let's move on with the rest of the list of these Blackburn all-time greats. Dirk, who have you got next on the list and why for strikers?
The next one is Roque Santa Cruz. Again, it was something that came out of nothing. A player that was at Bayern, and he was an average striker. It was a sort of a bit part player, I guess, for Bayern, but it was good enough, or was playing enough that when we signed him, it made moves around the fan base. Everyone got on board. Everything worked right for him. Again, that first season and a little bit into the second season. But he was a goal machine, the 2007-2008 era, scoring some good goals, valuable goals. He was, for me, the first real, because growing up as a Rovers fan, we've had some really good strikers, elite strikers in football. And for me, this one was of that caliber of a great that we'll name later on. It was the first time for me that I thought, this is a signing that this is a striker that could actually, if we could keep a hold of him, he could not break records, but fill that Shearer-shaped hole at Blackburn Rovers. We had some big names in the past, in the middle of between Shearer and of course Santa Cruz. But for me, when we signed him, I thought this is a brilliant signing. And again, he repaid it with a good season of goals, 23 goals, I think, in all competitions in his first season. I think he was blighted with injury in the second season, so he didn't really get as many games. But the fans still loved him. Again, he'd made that transition from Rovers to the Moneybags FC at the time, Manchester City. And you wouldn't blame him. It did hurt. It kind of stung a little bit because Man City were buying whoever was good at that time, they were buying them, and not just necessarily from Blackburn Rovers, but around the league. They were just gobbling up players, and it actually was a terrible move for him. It never worked out for him there. We tried to bring him back on loan. The second time around wasn't great for him either. We really got one full season, good season in our Roque Santa Cruz. And a good partial season, but still fans love him to this day. He's not one of those players that left with a distasteful a taste in your mouth. And I think it was Hughes as well who brought him to the club. And again, Hughes left, and I think he brought in Roque Santa Cruz with him, so he knew what he was going to get with him. And a lot of my picks, I'm going off of their track records elsewhere a little bit, and I know. He's a Champions League winner, Roque Santa Cruz. He won it with Bayern. He won multiple Bundesligas with Bayern, of course, with Bayern München. But, he might not have had the goal tally that he did again with Blackburn Rovers. But still playing. I think he might still be playing at 40 over in his native Paraguay. I think no Rovers fan, despite his leave to join Manchester City, have a bad word to say about Roque Santa Cruz. I think he was a colourful character, a lovely human being as well, which is another good part or good take on my 5 picks, because a lot of these guys are really good people off the field. If I had these days I might even stick Santa Cruz on the back of my shirt because I still have him in high regard. So a good player in my era, growing up as a Rovers fan. And again, in that mid-noughts where we weren't Premier League contenders, but we were competing for Europe, competing for UEFA under the Graham Souness / into the Mark Hughes era. We were an awkward team to play, and I don't know who we could compare to these days, as maybe your West Hams these days. I know West Ham are probably these days are a much better side than we would be in the day, who are competing maybe a little bit higher than just 6th or 7th. They are looking to try and break into that top 4, West Ham, but they're still classed as a UEFA or Europa League club. We were at that stage, that kind of team on a small budget, bringing in bargains like Roque Santa Cruz. I don't even know the transfer fee. It was small. It was maybe a couple of million, maybe 3 million, I think. But we sold them for 5 times that or maybe I can't remember the figure, but it was big. The day. So yeah, I have high regard for Roque Santa Cruz, and I always had a hope that he may return again. But that second loan or the loan spell was a dead rub. I kind of put a damp squib on it. But that era, the way he came back, was the Steve Keane era, where everything, they were trying to do something to get the fans on side. That's why they brought him back, and he scored no goals. So it was a bit of a bust. But no. He gets number 4 for me, Roque Santa Cruz.
Okay, brilliant. No, I do remember Roque Santa Cruz for Blackburn. Particularly enjoyed his partnership at times with Benny McCarthy as well. I think that's quite an enjoyable, strike partnership that Blackburn had at that period. And obviously it was a shame that it didn't work out for Man City. But he was at City at a time where they were going through, that big transition where they were signing lots of strikers that he could have competed with, and then not too long later, the likes of Sergio Aguero and Carlos Tevez were turning up. So it was a tough period for him. But that's great. Roque Santa Cruz coming in 4th then for Dirk's list of 5 all-time best strikers at Blackburn Rovers. Let's get into number 3. It's a good list remaining, isn't it, Dirk? Who have you got next in 3rd place?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Jordan Rhodes. Jordan Rhodes, we might not have had him in the Premier League, and he might have failed in the Premier League, but for Rovers, he was clinical. He was, we signed him at a point in his career where I think we got the best out of him. I don't think he's kind of hit those levels since, but proven goal scorer, definitely a championship level, and we were sad to see him go. But I don't know what his family connections are with Middlesbrough. I know he had an uncle, I think Steve Agnew, I think is his uncle, and I think he was at Middlesbrough. And I kind of followed him around a little bit, but we got goals out of, we rinsed him dry of goals. And unfortunately, we never got to bounce back with him at the helm. But he scored important goals in the Championship. The fans love him to this day. I believe, from other platforms out there, I've heard that he still has a huge heart for Blackburn, and he also regrets leaving at the time. But he scored 100 and something goals for Blackburn Rovers. I don't even know the actual number. I don't know. Well, maybe close to 100, maybe even more than that. I don't know. 85 goals I can see, but throughout the years, double digits for 4 seasons. You can't fault that. But the only blip, the only sort of the black smudge on the resume is that he couldn't fire us in the Premier League. Because I thought if he was to get us in the Premier League, I think in the 2012, 2013 era, around about there, that we finished our highest since our relegation from the Premier League, around about 7th or just shy of the playoffs under Gary Bowyer. And I think if we'd got to the Premier League, he probably would still be with us today, even though we probably would have got relegated within the season or something. But good memories, recent memories, good goals. He scored against those 6-fingered freaks down the road. If I'm not allowed to say that, then Burnley lot. You
already have.
Yeah, I've already have.
Can't stop you, it's live.
But so he's done that. He's played in those derbies. He's played in East Lancashire derbies. We haven't had the good recent record against them, but even to the brink of last season when his contract was expiring, I think Adam Shepherd Wednesday, there was a huge section of the Rovers fan base that was keen to snap him up, but unfortunately he went back to another good club of his, of course, Huddersfield Town, and he's yet to get back scoring. But he's a different player these days. He's not going to get starts as often as he can, but we still love him. We dread playing against him, so because we know what he's got in the locker.
Yeah, I mean, there was a time, I think it's fair to say, that Jordan Rhodes was perhaps the most feared striker outside the Premier League, particularly, during his first spell at Huddersfield and obviously at Blackburn as well. So many goals through that period, that sort of 6 or 7 years, it was so good in the EFL. Can you put your finger on it at all, Dirk? Why, things seem to have dropped off for him since that spell at Blackburn, really? He's never managed to really find that consistent level of form. Do you think there's a real reason behind that, or it's just, sometimes this happens to strikers?
Well, I think when he made the move from Blackburn, again only opinion based, but I think when he made the move from Rovers to Middlesbrough, that was the big money move, I guess, for him. And I think he did get Premier League football. But I don't know what their I can't remember Middlesbrough's managerial situation over that period between 2015 2017 or so. If one of them had belief in him, and then the new manager maybe didn't have the belief in him, maybe that period of he still scored a handful of goals. I think he got combined on the two stints, of course, with Rovers and Middlesbrough. He got 17 goals or something like that for that season. So he got the goals that got them into the Premier League. I guess maybe, I don't know if there was a change of manager in that period. I can't really recall that, but maybe that point, the manager lost faith in or didn't see what everyone else saw in Jordan Rhodes. And again, if you don't start scoring within the first few games of the Premier League and your first crack at it, they're going to lose faith. They're going to think, okay, maybe we should bring somebody else in who can actually do this, and it's going to take a while to confidence for Jordan. And I think that was it. I think, he got his a couple opportunities at the Premier League, didn't score. They needed a goal scorer. He wasn't providing. So he was kind of maybe pushed to the back of the queue, and then of course loaned out to Sheffield Wednesday, where, again, he scored goals, but again, not at a consistent level. And maybe that was the breaking point. Worked so hard to get to the Premier League, gets to the Premier League, doesn't get, because, even Adam Armstrong today, we lost him, for big money, and he's only got one goal this season. It's a different beast as the Premier League. You're playing up against world class opposition, and again, if you don't start scoring, people are starting to raise question marks. And I know Jordan Rhodes is a goal scorer. I know Adam Armstrong is a goal scorer, and you got to get those. You got to provide sometimes you got to provide stuff off the field to make sure things work out. You got to put an arm around the shoulder, or just give them a bit more confidence one way or other. And I think maybe Jordan Rhodes just took a there was a change of manager, change of vibe around the place. Didn't see what everyone else saw in him. Put him at the back of the queue, replaced him perhaps, and then he probably took that the wrong way, and his numbers have dropped since. So, it's a shame, because I would have loved to see him. I would, as a Scot, I think he's got Scottish caps. I don't know. Yeah, he's got a couple of Scottish caps. So I was excited about that as well. Him linking up with the Scottish team, but again, he didn't score there either. So he had another opportunity to score at another level, but it just didn't work out. But still today, I'd have him as a super sub. I know he's got goals. Maybe a familiar surrounding, like maybe hopefully Huddersfield can eventually get some goals out of him, and maybe he could be the new Lewis Grabban, who's a goal scoring machine at the later stage of his career. So we still love him. He can come home anytime. I'll cook him a tea if he wants some curry or something like that. He's always got a bed at my house.
Okay, we'll have to get that message to him. But that's Jordan Rhodes in at number 3. Let's get into the top 2. Dirk, I don't envy you with the 2 names you've got left to try and decide between. So the floor's yours. Who's in second place?
Well, I'm going to go Simon Garner. He is the record goal scorer for Blackburn Rovers. Phenomenal player. A dedicated, lifelong player, but he played a huge part of his career for Blackburn Rovers, and he broke all kinds of records along the way. Unfortunately, he wasn't part of the team that played in the Premier League in the inaugural season. He got us to the Premier League. He got us to the promised land. He got us to that point. But for me, he gets number 2. But you can't knock his goals. He's a record breaker for Rovers, and I think that record will stand firm for a long time. But he joined at an era where money wasn't the big deal. There's no personas you had to manage. It was straight down the middle. Footballer, no mucking about. And he scored. It was just prior to my era. I just became a Rover around about that stage. I'm an old man, but his records, his legacy still stands firm with Rovers. It's just a shame. Like, I look back on him the other day, and it was a shame that he couldn't be a part of that. He got us there. He fired us into the Premier League, but for whatever reason, maybe it's just contract ran out, or I guess the money was there. They went the different way, kind of mini Man City, I guess, and decided to upgrade from from Simon Garner to the Mike Newells to the Alan Shearers, of course, and things like that. But no, without him, without his goals, without his contribution to the club, we would probably be nowhere near, or we would not have had the legacy or the history that we have had. He got us to that point. Without those goals, without that magical moments towards the back end of his career with us, if he hadn't put the balls in the back of the net, we would have may not have made the Premier League, or it might have been a later point. And again, domino effect. Premier League would never happen in 94, 95. So, we owe a lot. We owe a lot to Simon Garner, and we appreciate his goals. And thankfully, he does have records to his name that will hopefully last long. But on the other hand, hopefully somebody will break it in the future. We Rovers fans keep him at high regard as well, just like a lot of the other names. But yeah, what has he got? 168 goals in 474 matches. That's quite a number. Just a shame that he couldn't be in the Prem.
Yeah, you just don't see that longevity really anymore at one particular club. It's, what with transfers and agents, that kind of thing. You just look at, started in 1978 for Blackburn, and obviously, as you said, 1992 was when it come to end. I mean, in that respect, it's kind of hard to see a striker coming in now and getting near that just terms of how long they've been in the club. Obviously, Blackburn got some good young players coming through at the moment, but you can't see them potentially remaining at the club for that long, can you?
No, and that is a shame. We like you said, we have a good crop of players, and we've got our own internal sort of restrictions at the moment with a lot of our talent. I know, our current hot talent, Ben Brereton Diaz, who's scoring goals for like fun and making us believe that we've already found our 25 goal hero. But there's contract situations already, people, other third parties, putting their hat on it, spin on things and making things awkward for him to sign a new deal and things like that. And, gone are those days, like you say. I'd love to think that, and taking that concern out of the game would be great. We got 3 or 4, 5 key players, probably contracts expiring this summer. And for me, in my younger years, that doesn't seem to be a major concern. But these days, it seems to be every other year. Like this, if Diaz was to sign, we'll be reviewing the situation in 18 months' time. It's not like sign a deal and forget about it and don't have their worry again. There is those outside parties that get their fingers involved in trying to make themselves a buck. And I think that does ruin the game. I'd love to know that whoever's name I'm getting on the back of my shirt will be there for 5 years or whatever like that. But these days, it's not the Simon Garner era where you dedicate 10, 15 years of your life to a club and become a local hero, because that's what he is. He's a local hero. Scored the valuable goals. In an era before the money. He was there as the money came in, but. It's a shame that because if he continued off where he left off for Rovers and he managed to get into the Premier League and just a couple more seasons longer, because he was still playing. He was still playing when Rovers hit the glory years, and scoring goals as well as he moved on. But it's a shame that he had to leave when he did for doing all the stuff that he did in the past. So. Yeah, but again, it was just before, the mainstream football of today, where you got your highlight reels out there, and I don't think there's much highlight reels out there. I haven't really Googled his name out there to see what epic goals he has in the past, or a list of his seasons. That would be great to have. They might be out there actually. I should really do a deeper digging. But Simon Garner for me, number 2, veteran, and I appreciate all his goals in the past.
All right, brilliant. A worthy second place for Simon Garner. Let's round off the show then with number 1. And I guess, Dirk, it's probably no real surprise who your top pick is.
It's Anthony Stokes. No, I'm joking. It's Alan Shearer, of course. Premier League record breaker, Premier League winner. Legend, England legend, scoring goals valuable goals for England. Continued where he left off. He went back to his homeland club. He was offered, and again, a lot of the off the field stuff. you're offered a chance to go to the winning machine, Manchester United, that day, or you go back to your hometown club. He just chose to go home. Of course, he was paid handsomely, but still, I'm sure Manchester United would have matched it, if not even offered more. But his time at Rovers was great. Again, we're looking for a hero. We're looking for a goal scorer to fire us up there and make us contenders. It took us 2 or 3 years, I think, well, at least 2 years anyway, well, in fact, we actually were pretty decent from the get-go. I think we were top 6-ish. And when we got him, what a way to make your debut as well. I think he had a knack of doing that, scoring on his debut. He did for Southampton, did for Rhodes, did it for Newcastle. I think he did it for England as well. The majority of my good memories with Blackburn Rovers has Shearer involved. It was just, and again, at a young age for me, I was 10, 11, 12 in that era. And again, where I lived at the time, I actually lived in Germany, so I had to watch Match of the Day. It was, and it was like delayed because it was on Armed Forces TV. It'd be really late at night. Like, I know it's late at night in England, but it's like it's live-ish, but an hour later. So it was like 11:30 or something at night, and I'd have to wait and stay up because that was it. Because there was no internet, you couldn't really stick them on the TV or on the laptop or whatever and check them out there. I would have to get my highlights and from that. But fortunately, they got a lot of coverage, so I was enjoying what I saw. It was a good, it was an amazing era again. Watching him score the goals, and there were some bangers as well. Not only, he scored penalties. Yes, he scored some awesome free kicks. He scored some, individual bits of skill, and just that whole team. Anyway, that whole team supported him. And when he signed, it was a huge fee at that time. I think it was about $3.5 million. But the reception he got from his hometown, club Newcastle when he signed for them for 15 million, I think it was 15 million. I can't really remember the fee, but it was huge. But I don't think we see that either anymore. I know we talked about we don't see that longevity anymore, but we don't see those turnouts much these days. I know right here, right now in the COVID era, that might not be recommended anyway. But a signing of that caliber for that club draws such a huge turnout of people to see. Even Ronaldo, I don't know what that was like for Manchester United when he came back. I don't know, was there a big gathering or big unveiling? I don't think there was. But that sort of fanfare of a player making that switch. He was at his prime at Rovers, or maybe not even at his prime. Maybe we got him bubbling, and then of course he kicked on with Newcastle, scored a whole crap load of goals over there. But I always kept an eye on him. I still keep an eye on him to this day. I even watched a clip of him last night with Gary Neville talking about whatever, these 30 questions or whatever. It was just a little insight to his brain. We hold him in high regard because without those goals, we would never reach the pinnacle of English football. And we are one of the oldest clubs in the football league. We were one of the founding members. We're a founding member of the Premier League. But to get our hands on the trophy as well, that's something that could never be taken away. And his goals were massive a part of it. That whole bunch of players, in my eyes, they'll be heroes forever. And I'm glad we had him for what we did. And I had no malice towards him leaving, because if he'd left for Man United, then there would have been a bit of distaste in my mouth a little bit. But going back to your roots, and that showed his inner thoughts, or his inner mindset there that it's not all about money, it's not all about glory. It's going home. And I would have been the same if I was a football player. I would have if my opportunity to play for my wherever home club would be, which would be quite complicated, but it would be the right move. But it might not be the right move for the back pocket, but I'm sure he's still got paid handsomely regardless. But we cannot change that. And again, outside of Blackburn, I think when you ask people, name your top 5 Premier League strikers or strikers of the modern era, maybe domestically anyway, Shearer's going to be in that top 5, I'm sure, for the vast majority of the people. So Simon Garner scored the goals. He broke the records. He's still the biggest or the most goal scorers for Blackburn Rovers, but he didn't score the goals that got us to the top. He didn't break. He's not a modern day phenomenon, which Alan Shearer was, I miss him, missed his goals, missed his the element of game he brought to us. And again, that era as well, I think he stayed with us 1 year after the Champions League. That Euro '96 was great as well, and seeing him being the focal point of England at that time for trying to get the goals. But it was sad at the end when we did lose to Newcastle. But credit to him for making that move, and I do thank him for the memories, because they are great memories that we relay all the time. You know, we will not let you forget that we won the Premier League at one stage.
Yeah, I think a worthy winner as well, Dirk. I think Alan Shearer, I mean, from what I could see when I was growing up watching him, particularly Newcastle mainly, just what a player. Could score any goal, heading, free kicks, penalties, long range, close range. He was quick as well, particularly when he was at Blackburn. Obviously, he had that extra bit of pace. Just an unbelievable striker, and one that perhaps deserves even more credit in terms of the great strikers we've seen here in the UK and potentially worldwide. He's just an unbelievable player that could do it all and score all kinds of goals. So definitely a worthy winner of Dirk's list, the top 5 Blackburn strikers of all time. Dirk, just before we wrap up, obviously we've had you on before on Football League World TV, but we might as well plug Roverseas again. Where can we find you across social media on YouTube?
Yeah, I am on YouTube. If you want to check me out, I'm on youtube.com/Blackburn Roverseas. We cover, of course, Rovers content, but we do predictions from around the world. We do some weird stuff over there. The Dutch football, German football, Serie A as well. We just looking forward to the international break as well, but we keep on keeping on. So I'm on there. I'm on Twitch. I'm on Twitter as well. So just Roverseas me. Check me out. And I appreciate you having me on, George.
Nice one, Dirk. No, pleasure as always. We're sure to get you on again at some point later on in the season, talking all things Blackburn. Just a plug for Football League World TV as well. People watching, do subscribe to our YouTube channel. That'd be greatly appreciated. If you can give us a like on Facebook and Twitter with Football League World, that'd be really good as well. But from myself and Dirk, for this Friday morning chat, talking all things Blackburn Rovers, it's bye for now.